voices blending, melodies ascending, harmony in the air. Our songs are never ending. In the barbershop we create magic. Brad and John show, yeah, it's pure classic. No instruments needed, just our vocal range. Notes flying high, it's our musical exchange. Tracy's station may try, but they can't compete. Our barbershop style, it can't be beat. Oh, the harmony of voices, so sweet. In the barbershop of life, our tunes will repeat. No need for instruments, no need for a band. Just the Brad and John show, the finest in the land.
Well, John, I know we made at least one person happy this morning with that, if you know what I'm saying.
Is it Casey Kasem posthumously from Norway?
Yes, he's very happy. And you know who I'm going to make happy right now?
Who's that?
You, because it's the top 3 polka.
Time for the John Combest top 3.
And not Combest, but Combest. The John
yes, Combest.
Combest top 3, yes.
Maybe it's a little Luigi and Mario, too. Not Luigi the shooter, Brad, but the other Luigi.
We can't use that word Luigi anymore because now that has a bad connotation. That is John Combest. You heard him just talking just seconds ago. Combest. Put a John in front of that. Put a .com after it. You have his website, johncombest.com, which has been in business for a long time. What does he do? He's like the Missouri version of the Drudge Report. He summarizes a bunch of different things, puts like headlines of all these different stories that you should know about, sometimes as many as 50 of them. But today, as we do every day, Monday through Friday, and as I learned earlier this week, weekday, not daily, but weekday, we start off with John Combest's top 3. And we bring this guy in right here, and your name is, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And we start off with?
In third place.
Follow up on a story we've been following for, a week, Brad. U.S. Senator Eric Schmitt sat down with KMOV's Lauren Traeger to talk about a popular topic in St. Louis, and that is the ridiculous alleged fraud of federal money being spent with this shady contractor, with these allegedly shady contractors. Specifically, Brad, the case involving a man with one of your favorite names, Banjo Papula. And Eric Schmidt's point is, look, counties and cities have to spend this ARPA money by the end of the year. They're probably shoveling it out at the last minute, trying to approve contracts willy-nilly. Eric Schmidt's reminding people that misappropriating and stealing federal money is a crime. So, Brad, I think there's probably a silver lining here for people that look at what has been going on in St. Louis City and the alleged misappropriation, grift, and fraud, and say, look, it's St. Louis City. Nothing's going to happen. Everybody's going to look the other way. We're going to just Kim Gardner it up and let him go free. I think, Brad, this is a signal from Eric Schmitt that stealing federal money will have real consequences. What do you think, Brad?
Well, I would hate to think that he's right, but I think it's going to just sort of turn into nothing. I think it's going to be one of these things where it's going to be headlines for a while, and it's just going to disappear, and everybody's just going to go, oh, well, it was a few $1 million. We don't really worry about that. You know what I'm saying?
I think in most cases, Brad, you would be right, but I think coming up to an election season, when you have in 2025 Tashara Jones on the ballot in just a few months, I think you have enough critics, let's say, of Tashara Jones that they're going to want to keep stories like this front and center. It would be like crazy stuff going on in St. Louis County and people wanting to keep it front and center because Sam Page is up for election in 2026. That's not in the top 3, by the way. I'm just saying, I think there are folks who have a vested interest in making sure that this story stays in the headlines. And And by people, Brad, I don't just mean taxpayers. I mean political people as well.
Well, not only that, but add to that the president of the Board of Aldermen and two aldermen who ended up in jail, I mean, for essentially sort of the same kind of activity, taking payoffs and things like that, right? Wasn't that? I mean, that happened within the last 4 years, correct? With
Yeah, you're
Jones?
absolutely right, Brad. Lewis Reed, a very popular president of the Board of Aldermen, John Collins Muhammad, Jeffrey Boyd, these folks. I know you're thinking, how could it possibly happen? How would urban elected officials be convicted and go to jail for theft? But it does happen, Brad.
Well, the thing with Lewis Reed, he used to be a guest on quite frequently. You probably know this from listening to Reardon's show. I always found him a very interesting and very moderating kind of guy. He sounded like he wasn't one of these bomb thrower. Well, hey, we're going to do this in the city, and the rest of you people can get screwed. He sounded very down to earth and almost to the point where he sounded like he was really trying to get things done. And sometimes you see these things that people that you know and maybe you don't know, but you see them publicly and you have a good opinion of them. Then you find out there's like a dark side of them. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, God, that's sad. You know what I'm saying?
For folks who don't know, in 1919, Brad was outside a courthouse in Chicago, and a guy named Joe Jackson came out, and Brad was standing there, and he looked up at Joe Jackson and said, "Say it ain't so, Joe."
And
Joe said, "I'm sorry, young man. I'm afraid it is."
But what John didn't tell is that me being in the giving spirit, and it was this time of the year, it's Christmas time, I sat down on the street in Chicago. I took off my shoes and I said, "Shoeless Joe, take my shoes." And he did.
Well, Brad, before we start being too much of a Dickie Kerr, maybe we could get into story number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
A confounding story for which I don't have an answer, Brad. You don't have an answer because we've talked about it many times. What on earth is going to happen to this marijuana revenue if the courts come out and say, hey, counties, no more collecting that money? Well, Brad, that's what's going on down in Joplin, Missouri. Joplin Globe has this story today. Folks in Jasper County are doing something pretty wise, Brad, which is what you have questioned before, which is, hey, wouldn't it make the most sense if these counties just kind of take this money and set it aside for a while? Because as you pointed out, Brad, what happens if St. Louis County or other counties collect this tax and then spend it and the courts say, oh, no, you got to give that money back? So it looks like one county, Brad, Jasper County, is putting this money in escrow, and they're bragging, in fact, about the fact that because they're putting it in a separate account, it's interest bearing. They're going to make a little money on that. And as you know, Brad, we've covered it. The courts have gone back and forth. One St. Louis judge, a guy named Brian May, says, hey, collect the tax. Everything's fine. Have at it. And then another court will come and say, oh, no, you can't collect those taxes. So, Brad, when I said I don't know the answer, I don't know what St. Louis County, what St. Charles County, what St. Louis City are doing with this. And even better, Brad, if they'd have to give it back, how are they going to give it back? Does every pothead get to come to City Hall and with their hand out and show their receipts and get a little money back?
No, it's going to be like a class action suit. When you're in a class action suit, you get a coupon for
$1.32.
No, you get a coupon for a free pack of rolling papers. That's what you get. Hey,
yeah, who doesn't need a pack of zigzags, Brad?
Right, you paid this tax and you shouldn't have paid it, so we're giving you now. For those of people who don't know what we're talking about, this gets very complicated. This is once again an example of why these constitutional amendments are really, really sort of bad in some ways. It's a little bit confusing as of the way the language is written. Is there's 3% for the city, and supposedly there's 3% for the county. So if a marijuana establishment is like, for example, in unincorporated St. Louis County, they only collect 3%. Am I correct on this, right, John, now?
You're correct, yep, you're correct.
But if it's like a place like in O'Fallon or, O'Fallon, Missouri, or, Crestwood, I don't know if there's a place in Crestwood, they are now collecting 6%, 3% for the city and 3% for the county. And the marijuana dudes, wasn't it one of the owners up in Florissant? Isn't he one that spearheaded this suit? He's essentially saying, no, that's not what the amendment says. The amendment says it's municipal only, and the county doesn't have any say unless the location is in a county that is not a spot in a county which is not incorporated, which in St. Charles, there's quite a bit of that, and the same thing in St. Louis County.
There sure is,
right.
Brad.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's the deal right now. See, this is where the St. Louis marijuana dealers should be, the ones in the city should be running ads. Hey, come and buy from us because you'll save 3% from those other places because we only take 3% because we are not in a county. We're in the city. So when you come and buy marijuana from us in the city, you only pay 6% state tax and 3% municipal tax. But if you go out in St. Charles County or Franklin County or St. Louis County in one of those muni places, you pay 6%, right? Don't you think that would be a good advertising campaign?
That's exactly it, Brad. And, you've set up a trolley service to take people from one municipality to another based on, it's kind of like the Gas Buddy app. You started your own app, and it's like a shuttle system where you can take people to get the best cannabis tax price, right?
What John doesn't realize is he's making fun of me, but I'm actually working with the Del Mar Loop trolley people to essentially put some tires on their trolleys and essentially do that, where it's say, hey, jump on the Get High trolley and come with me and you'll save your 3%.
And the best part is you can park in front of any of the beautiful places out there like Del Mar Hall or the Tivoli or other places like that, Brad. And then you can leave your gun in the car. And if it gets stolen and you're in the city, you can get a fine for it.
Okay, John, I got to ask you a dumb question. Okay, you're talking about the fact that you say Eric Schmitt is going after the city and essentially saying these people that
he's warning them.
Well, he's warning them. Why isn't he going after the lunkheads with the Del Mar Loop trolley? That was like $55 million in federal funding. Talking about a boondoggle, talking about, putting a pile of money, in the parking lot and putting the lighter fluid on it and setting it on fire. I mean, that to me is the ultimate crime, no?
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you what actually hawley with that is Josh Hawley was investigating that. And they were going to have a meeting, and Schmitt walked in, and he saw those pirate boots and the skinny jeans that Josh Hawley was wearing. And Schmitt was like, you know what? I'm gonna go pick a fight with Chuck Schumer today. I'm not gonna mess with Josh Hawley. I'm gonna let Josh have the trolley fight.
They're not pirate boots, they're pirate shoes. Okay, moving right along to our last, but most important,
the number one.
Woo, Brad, there was a doozy of a story the last 2 days, and this is brought to us by another talk radio station, another morning talk radio station, Brad, that's based maybe in the Westplex, maybe Washmo. Brad has an opinion on it, and that is Real Talk 93.3. Their morning show, Brad, is called The Morning Crew with Dan and Drew. And Brad, because we've talked about the show before, they have a special guest come in frequently, and that is State Representative Holly Jones. Remember us talking about Holly, Brad?
Oh, yeah.
And so was listening to the show yesterday, and just for context here, Holly was talking about a lot of pushback she got from the previous day's show, and I was like, whoa, missed that one. Got to go back and listen. Brad, Holly is a member of Missouri's Freedom Caucus, and Justin Sparks is also a member of the Freedom Caucus. And here's the tension, Brad. Holly Jones has been getting a lot of pushback and a lot of questions about the fact that the Freedom Caucus has not endorsed Justin Sparks and Justin Sparks' challenge against John Patterson for Speaker of the House. This is a big deal. And frankly, Brad, it's really the only thing that people in Missouri politics have to talk about between now and the start of session. So Holly was on the show Wednesday on the Dan and Drew, the Morning Crew with Dan and Drew, and was talking about why exactly she is going to support John Patterson over her fellow Freedom Caucus member, Justin Sparks. Brad, if you go to my website today, you'll see all the timestamps. In short, what we got from Holly was the fact that Justin Sparks isn't running for Speaker with the stamp of approval, with the endorsement of the Missouri Freedom Caucus. Holly says that Justin Sparks just went out on his own and did this. Holly says that Justin Sparks didn't bother texting her, didn't bother texting other members of the Freedom Caucus who really need to know about this stuff, and that Holly is going to support John Patterson, a guy who's often attacked as a RINO. She's going to support John Patterson over her fellow Freedom Caucus member, Justin Sparks. Now, she spoke well of Justin Sparks, has a lot of great things to say about him, But she really detailed, Brad, a lot of inconvenient facts, I think, that Sparks supporters overlook, which is Justin Sparks actually voted for John Patterson for Speaker and caucus, that John Patterson has let a lot of conservative legislation come to the floor, even though he didn't really support that legislation. So, Brad, I think it's fascinating. And then I'll pause right there for 1 second to point out maybe Holly's follow-up yesterday on the Morning Crew with Dan and Drew was even more interesting because she was able to talk about the pushback that she got from conservatives on social media on Wednesday. And Holly's point was this, Brad. See if this sounds familiar. Holly's point was that she can vote with people, he says, 99.9% of the time. And there's still going to be some people who get on social media and call her a RINO, who criticize her because she's supporting John Patterson over Justin Sparks. And you could hear, Brad, the frustration from Holly Jones to say, look, I am a conservative and I agree with 99.9% of things that you folks are always yelling about. But if I don't support you on 1/100th of a thing, suddenly you're mad at me and suddenly I'm a RINO. It's outrageous, Brad. So I would suggest, it's very rare, Brad, in the top 3 that I actually tell people to go listen to the audio, because usually you can just read the summary. But Brad, she gave an impassioned view on why you can't just call somebody a RINO if they disagree with you 1/10 of the time or 1/100th of the time. You get what I'm saying, Brad?
John, I have to tell you something. I just got a call from Tracy Ellis, and she said...
Who is that, Brad? Now, that's your friend, right? You have a good, neutral, unbiased relationship with her.
Oh, yeah, she loves me. I gave her start in the radio business, but that's a whole other story. She's the leasee of the radio station because she doesn't actually own it, her and her husband. And she just called me, and she said she heard you talk about this, and she says, no RINOs allowed on her radio station. So she's kicking Holly off. She's never to be back on the station again because she, matter of fact, what she's going to do is she's just hung up with me while you're talking, and she's going to call Mark McCloskey, and Mark McCloskey is going to make an appointment with Holly to administer the Republican purity test on Holly to essentially find out what her true leanings are, and then we'll know. And then we'll know.
I thought you were going to say an exorcism, Brad.
See, once again, John, I find this so effing hilarious that, it's like, I'm 99.9% Republican. No, that 0.1% makes you a RINO. I mean, this is why the Republicans are screwed up. I'm telling you. Let me interrupt, Brad. And I agree with, a lot of times you and I go back and forth on this, and I don't always see it the way you do when it comes to these battles. But it goes to show, Brad, and this goes beyond Holly Jones and Justin Sparks and a bunch of people being angry online. When you look at people who are with you almost 100% of the time and you punish them, and Holly's point was yesterday on the show, Holly's point was, look, these conservative grassroots people, Amelia Peterson and Kathy Jo Loy have coined the phrase GINO, grassroots in name only. And when people say, Holly's point was that these GINOs or these grassroots people will give moderates a pass because they don't expect much from them. But those same people will go to Holly Jones and jump all over her if she takes a hard vote or she doesn't stand up for somebody loud enough. So are you really building bridges? Are you really bringing people in? Or are you just annoying people who should naturally be your allies, Brad? I say the latter. I mean, I think you and I sort of agree on that, don't you? I mean, I think
we do, Brad.
Because of the fact that it's to the point where it's like, okay, the Republicans, God, I could go on for 45 minutes with this. It's so frustrating because you hear all this teeth gnashing about, we've got the abortion rights and they can abort babies up to the day before birth and stuff like that. Well, you stupid Republicans, you let it happen because if you wouldn't have bombed the IP reform, this wouldn't have happened. And by the way, maybe we'll talk about this in B Block. I listened to KWMU, was it Wednesday? I guess it was Wednesday. I listened to the replay of Sarah Fensky. God, she is so good, where she did the legal roundtable. And that was a fascinating show. You have 3 attorneys who are all very skilled attorneys, and they can't agree on anything. And the things they can't agree on, one is the abortion bill, and the other one is the county prosecuting attorney thing. And it's fascinating to hear three very learned legal minds be in a room together and not agree. And it's going like, God, is this? And once again, especially the deal with the abortion thing, because the Amendment 3 was so poorly written. And it's once again, it's like, but now that's part of our Constitution.
That's the way it goes. And Brad, I know we're over time here. The most important nugget, I think, for people to actually follow up on at the Capitol, Holly Jones points out that the day they come back, which is January 8th, is Holly Jones' birthday. She does not want cake. She does want Rice Krispie treats, Brad.
Did she really say that?
Yeah, she really said that.
Okay.
I'm not a cake guy either. I like a delicious pie.
You and I are exact opposite. You give me a piece of pie and it'll end up in the trash can. Give me a piece of cake, it'll be gone. Especially if it's white, if it's like white dough and chocolate icing.
Little Debbie, right? Especially if it's a Little Debbie.
Right, okay.
Brad, we're way over time. I'm sorry. I'm over here talking about Rice Krispie treats. And you're trying to go to commercial.
You didn't even give me a chance to talk about GINO either, so we'll just have to pick that up later.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?